In this episode, I sit down with Ian Miner and we talk about the word hospitality. And there are some things about that word that really irk me. And Ian gives some really sound guidance on how to approach this in a co-working workspace environment. It's a really good episode. One of the reasons I wanted to talk to Ian about this is because I think he's one of the most well thought out people. And instead of just shouting out the word hospitality and hoping it lands, he has thought more deeper than most people I know in our industry about what that word means and what the practical application of that word and the standard operating procedures and everything that goes around that, because hospitality isn't a word you shout out. If you've ever worked in hospitality, you know, there's like grind, hard work, blood, sweat and tears and a lot of burns and cuts from doing it. So in this episode, we get into hospitality, and there's a link in the show notes at the end to Ian's work online, particularly his articles on LinkedIn. So let's go. Table 32. Hello, folks. It is the Co-working Values podcast. And finally, I've got the Ian Miner in the studio. Ian, what are you known for and what would you like to be known for?
Hey, Ben, thanks for inviting me. I know we've been trying to get this going for some time and it just hasn't happened, but we'll finally get to have a chat. What am I known for? I guess more or less it's hospitality, members clubs, those kind of things, which is then merged into co-working. And I guess the most notable part is creating working from for the Hoxton was probably the biggest thing that I did, as well as working at Neuer House, and that's what got me into the industry back in 2015, or this side of the industry. And yeah, I think that's really what I'm probably known for, and also now working with Caleb Parker, that a lot of people would know as well.
So Ian, this hospitality word, which I love so much because I grew up in catering and hospitality, I feel it's been thrown around a little bit too liberally, if I can say that politely. And what if someone bumped into you and went, Ian, what's hospitality? How would you? I can't give you context. They just stopped you in Liverpool Street Station and said, like, what's hospitality? What would you say?
Yeah, I would say, I think, it would be hospitality is the art of being hospitable. That is the one sentence that I would put into it. But I think with hospitality as well, there's lots of layers to it as well. There's lots of depth that you can take into hospitality. But the main point is it's the art of being hospitable.
I kind of I feel like I'm like boiling the ocean a bit on this, but like what is that? Because when people say that, when you say that, I just get transported back to restaurants I've worked in and welcoming people in and that kind of thing. And is there a feeling that generates?
Yeah, I think it's about experience. So it's if someone goes now to let's say they go to a restaurant, a couple go to a restaurant, they're not there in my mind to actually be buying that particular cuisine or a really expensive bottle of wine. That's part of what is happening there. But what they're really doing is they're going for the experience. They're going for the company that the two people or the party bring together and the conversations that they can have. But it's everything to do with the setting, the welcoming, the ambience. All of these things all add to the vibrancy of what the experience actually is. So you're going for an experience within hospitality, and that's the thing that you're really delivering. The food and the drink, for me, are part of the product, but they're not the main thing.
Yeah, there's, I don't know why it popped in my mind as you were saying that. There's like really nice restaurants you go to, and then I'm thinking, like here in Vigo, there's this taco place, and they really know what they're doing, and it looks like a greasy spoon maybe, but with Corona posters. And when you go in, it's not like it's a one-off place, and you go in and it's always, everything's at 100 miles an hour, and the guy's like shouting at you from behind the counter. And I love it there. Like, I absolutely love going there, and the food is great too. And it is an experience. And it's not like he's designed this experience. It's just like, that's what they do there. It's a bit chaotic. The food is amazing. We walk, like, it's like 20 minutes walk on Sunday night. We walk there in the rain because it's just so good. And then you think of, we could have gone to the cool hotel in town, and, which is much nearer. But like, when you say, sorry to go around the houses here, when you say experience, like, I love that taco experience as well as I like sitting in a really well thought out hotel bar, So I suppose, that was a long thing there. What is an experience?
Well, an experience is what the venue tries to create, and that an experience is trying to make something that's personal to that customer. So it's understanding or taking cues from the individual that's gone in there, or the couple that have gone in there. Maybe you sat someone down at the table, and it's not just about giving them the menu and the drinks menu and then coming back a few minutes later and seeing what they want to order. That's the basic standard operating procedure that you're going to go through when you're serving and going through the stages of the actual ordering and the sitting. But an experience is getting and actually having a conversation with the customers, understanding the reason why they came there for that meal on that particular day. Was it a booking? Is it a special occasion? Trying to learn a little bit about them as individuals, as a couple, as a party, as a family. And then seeing what little added things that you can do during the course of that sitting, which could be 2 to 2.5 hours, let's say, to make it extra special, so that when they go away, aware that when they leave the evening, they're still talking about that for the next few weeks. Because if they're talking about that over the next few weeks, it's not just amongst themselves, it's with their friends, their colleagues, all these type of things that starts to build a reputation that has come from the experience or the service that they've been given during that period of time when they were there, which was more than what they were expecting.
And what's I'm going to get really geeky here. So, like, what's the motivation for that? Because I have been in that situation as a food server or waiter. Like, there was this. I worked in a bar in deepest Essex, and then I worked in the brand in Covent Garden, and these people used to come into Lakeside to the boat, and and they would order a margarita with no salt, and they'd order a Corona. And then 3 years later, they came into Covent Garden where I was working, and I recognized them, and I just put their drink in front of them. And they were like, "How did you know?" And I just went, "I knew, like, you used to come in the boat." And they're like, "How on earth did you remember that?" And I got a real kick out of that. Maybe they wanted to order a cup of tea and a pina colada, but that's what they got. But it was like a really rewarding thing. And I didn't do that so they would come back again. I just saw an opportunity to practice, what do you call it? Like a random act of kindness and beauty. But there's this tension of like, is it making someone's day, or is it making sure they come back and create loyalty? And both are good. Sorry, I'm making one out to be bad and one to be nice.
It goes back to the very first thing I said, where hospitality is the art of being hospitable, and you've just explained it exactly with what you did there. That's what you did, and because you were trying to bring something additional or extra to the moment for them, but it was also delivering a moment for you. So you can do this in any walk of life. You can engage with life or not engage with life, and if you engage with it, you're always going to get better and richer experiences from that. So this is why it comes down to, if you're in the hospitality industry, it comes down to your personality and what type of person you are. Are you the type of person that always wants to go above and beyond? And I would think that this is true in any case or any walk of life. if you always go above and beyond what is expected, you're always going to deliver a lot more than what they even wanted, but they'll always remember it. And I think that's the key to anything that you're going to do, be it hospitality or anything or any walk of life that or profession you're in, is always to do it and come from a point of love and care. And you're always going to then deliver that experience, which is, I think, what people want at the end of the day. And it's also then leads into escapism. I think if you can deliver a level of service that's above and beyond and they can escape for a few hours, then that's the key. I suppose at the end of the day, what a lot of people will do that for, especially in a service or hospitality industry, would be because maybe they think they're going to get a really good tip, and they might well do, which adds to everything, of course. But at the end of the day, you're going home from your shift or your night's work or your day's work, knowing that for those 8 hours or 10 hours, you did the best that you could do in that period of time, and you can go home happy. And that's always been something that I'd always said, is just give me your best 8 hours today. And then you'll go home feeling good about yourself. And if you feel good about yourself when you go home, you then transmit that positivity into your home life. So the whole thing starts to grow and you start to live in that kind of Zen way of life. And I think that's the key to the reason why you did that. And the reason why you felt good out of it, so did they. You're adding some level of positivity to someone's life, but also your own.
Yeah, I always got a kick out of putting people's drinks in front of them in the bar without speaking to them. There was like, I can go on for ages about this, and like 20 years later, I can name the person, the drink, and the bar that we were working in. Chris and his. Do you know what a greyhound is?
A greyhound.
There's a guy who used to come in our bar, and he'd have a double vodka with a splash of grapefruit juice, and it wasn't just getting his drink right; it was getting it exactly right. Like he just wanted a little bit in there, and he drank a lot of them, so it was easy to practice. When people go, and I've been this person working in companies, like it's all about hospitality, and we want to give people an experience, and I think some people, like you've just explained, are in tune with it. Their frequency is that's what they want to do, and then other people are just like shouting out the words that are words of the moment, and I feel that then other people experience a disconnect. Are we like co-working is in the hospitality business, and people are going, I thought it was like about like, renting desks or something. So how come we're in the hospitality business? And it all gets a bit kind of like a Instagram word jumble. So why are we in the hospital? I'm trying to ask a cleverer question than that, but like, how are we suddenly in the hospitality business? Not suddenly, about 3 years ago, we were in the hospitality business, but
I think because it needs some kind of positioning. It needs to sit somewhere in some industry. And I think co-working, it didn't really sit anywhere in my mind. I mean, because I've never related myself to working in an office environment. It's never been something that I've ever wanted to do. For me, I've always been really in the members club kind of sphere, be that social, be that health club, golf clubs, and all those kind of resources where I've always sat. And I could look at maybe the fitness industry and say, well, it's not really hospitality because there's not really any hospitality at play. I can certainly say restaurants, hotels, bars, they're in the hospitality industry because there's a lot of moments when you interact with customers, and you have to, because that's part of the job and work that it is. People are going there to be looked after and served. So when you say hospitality, or people say hospitality and co-working, I think it's purely from a positional point of view, so that it helps people understand that they need to perhaps give more than what they have been used to giving in the past. Does that make sense?
That is beautiful. Like, I haven't heard it put like that, and I will now say that to everybody. Yeah, because I think it's, and the way I've interpreted how some people have said it, and sorry for listening, but we're in the hospitality business now, and it becomes about, mean, design is really important, but like, it becomes like what we look like rather than what you just said is the, you know, giving a shit basically, you know, like going beyond here's your desk, toilets are over there to, you know, an experience.
Yes. So then I think what people need to do, or operators in the industry, they need to figure out, well, if they are going to be positioned within this hospitality sphere, what level of hospitality can they comfortably give with the current operation they have, and what that do they aspire to give? So I would say that if you had a let's think of a department, let's think of reception. So if you have a reception team or receptionist team, that to me describes a location within a building. It kind of implies to me that a reception or the reception won't go any further than the point of reception, which is entry. So for me, when I've been creating spaces, I've been looking at the terminology behind the wording that I would use for employees. So I changed from reception to host. So I've always called that department the host team, because as a host, it means that they are going deeper within the operation of the building. Not only are they controlling a reception area or a zone, they're moving through into looking after members throughout the journey and throughout the space. So they go deeper within the building. So by creating the terminology change, you can then put in a deeper layer of service to define that role and that position, that operational department better. So what you're trying to do is thinking, well, okay, if we're in the co-working world, how deep can we go with this hospitality or this service to make it feel as if we really are in hospitality? You can either be really shallow on it and just say, listen, they're receptionists, or reception teams, so all they actually do is look up from the desk and smile or nod or make eye contact, and that is it. That's the touch point. How much deeper can we go into make that much, much more customer focused, and how far can we take it into the actual operation? So I think
that is like owning. So, you know, there's a difference between a bartender and a mixologist. It's nearly the same thing, isn't it? But like, if I'm a host, I am hosting people, and if I'm a receptionist, I'm like answering the phone and opening the door. So it's
kind of.
Yeah.
I think what it does is it's just trying to put the depth into what the roles and what the operation is, to be able to tap into or get enough deep touch points within it to determine that it can be classed as hospitality. Otherwise, it's hard to really define it in that way, because there's not enough touch points with the client or the member base to be able to really call that. Now, if we're talking about restaurants, there's so many touch points, isn't there? You have the welcoming, you have the concierge or the host at the front that would take them to a table. They're then given a server as well as a waiter. There's a bar person that will do the drinks. There's the kitchen team that will make the food. There's the server that will deliver it. There's the waiter that will give them the bill and talk to them during the course of the time that they're there. There's so many touch points that you can play on, and with those touch points, you can then build in all these standard operating procedures behind it. Layers of service. Who do you serve first? Who do you serve last? Whose order you take first? In which way do you put the food out onto the table? Do you put food on the table when they're all deep in conversation, or do you wait for someone to stop talking before you put the plate in front of that person? Do you put it from the left? Do you put it from the right-hand side? Where do you position the glasses, the plates, and all these things on the actual table? When do you clear it? At what point do you clear the table? Do you wait till everyone's finished? You need to make sure that they've all put their cutlery on the table, on the plate, on a certain angle and direction to indicate that they finished, so you can clear it. There's all those levels of touch points where you can engage in conversation on a restaurant. So it's easy to say that's hospitality. But when you've maybe just got a reception point, how many points are there of or touches are there that you can engage in conversation? Not that many. So this is the question. How do you define all of those elements, and then how do you build those touch points in to say that it is a hospitality play or industry that we're in?
And this, as you're saying that, so if you're, in a flexible workspace or a co-working space or a neighborhood space, whatever we call it these days, there's, people come in the building and then in that situation I'm describing, would how you communicate with them by email or the software you're using, is that a touch point, or is it always a physical real world thing?
Well, I think at the moment, the way a lot of things have been, we're so used to being technology driven and not human connection driven. The emails would be fine for some people, but it's also about the terminology that you're going to use or the wording that you're going to use in the email and the way that it comes across and feels. You put it across as if you're either talking to one person on an email, or it's a generic email that you would just typically send it because it's a templated format. So people can understand or feel the difference in tone on the written word as well. But there's nothing best than going to talk to someone in person.
Absolutely.
Right.
I remember one place I worked in, I would email them, everyone in the room, about an event, and then I get annoyed that none of them spoke to me about the event. And then a few weeks later, I thought, if I go round and say, Ian, we got the barbecue on Tuesday, would you like to come? And, everyone started talking about it. But there's something about, there's something about like thinking that just because you sent an email, everyone is in, and they're not. That I know everybody says it in every podcast, but like that human interaction is so important.
Yeah, it's crucially important. So that's probably the fundamental point then. So the human connection that you're driving or you're trying to get to is what can define whether or not you're hospitality or not.
So like my last thing is, there's a lot of people who run, they're like owner managed spaces, or there's like 2 or 3 people in the whole thing. And I always feel that, a lot of the conversation about hospitality, particularly on LinkedIn, which is where I, hang out, is more of it's an operations question for larger organizations. But then, so much of what I see you talking about is applicable to people of any size, and like, how would you advise smaller operations?
Yeah, I think this is where it all comes down to finances at the end of the day on smaller operations, doesn't it? I think if you look at a typical restaurant, let's look at restaurants because that's what I've been talking about. They will look at their staff count or their staff salary ranges, and anything between, let's say, 23 to 28% of revenue goes on staff salaries. So if you're talking about a small operator and they would think, well, okay, if I want to get that level of hospitality, it means that 23 to 26% of the revenues I make needs to go on salaries. That might blow them out of the window depending on what they're paying, if they're on a lease or if they're on a management agreement. However, the utilities, all of these other dynamics come into play. The thing is, with co-working, what I realized when I started looking into this and the salary ranges and how many staff members I actually need, that I realized that you could probably be down, and what I've seen from what I've done, between 9 to 11% staff cost against revenue. Nightclubs used to be about 13 to 16% because they don't have all the services going on. They just have the bar staff and the
plastic glasses you can throw away.
Yeah, and all those sorts of things. And then if you look at hotels, they're at the higher end, 30 to 33, maybe 35%. So there's all these different ranges of costing when it comes to the staffing level that you're going to put in. So the real point is, if they're a smaller operator and there are 2 or 3 people in there and they've got all of these things that they have to do on a day-by-day basis, realistically, how much time can they really spend with the member or the customer at the end of the day? How far can they go? Are there anything that they can do within their day where they can cross-train or other team members that can go and do an extra element that is actually engaging with the customers a bit more, the members a little bit more? So I would simply start there, look at what you're currently offering. Look at those touch points that you're currently offer. Is it literally just a greet at the door? How many other touch points can you go and do within the journey of a member's day? How many more touch points can you have in there that doesn't impact on the cost it's going to put onto your bottom line with what you need to spend out? Look at that to start off with. And then from that, try and see if it's having an effect on the retention rate of the members. Are you keeping more members there? Are they happy? Are you learning more about the things that they want within the space? Is there more stickability with them staying there longer? And then just taking that journey through and seeing if you can add a few more people onto the the payroll or the team at that moment in time. Eventually get to that point.
So if there's a couple of you, say there's like two partners who own a co-working space and they've got two people who work for them. So there's like 4 people in the team, maybe like 100 people in the building kind of thing. How would you recommend organizing that journey? Is that sitting down in a room one day and everyone talking through it, or is it producing a document? Because when you say journey, I know what you mean, but I know people will go like what everyone thinks in the building that journey is could be very different.
So that's the first thing to do, would be to sit down with the owners of the company, actually understand what each day looks like for them within the operation of the building, understanding if they've got operational manuals written, if they've got standard operating procedures written, which are the SOPs. And these are all of the kind of documents that the staff will go through on each element of operations. So it would be an SOP could be written on telephone etiquette. An SOP could be written on postal deliveries. An SOP could be written on onboarding of a new member. All of these different elements will have the SOPs that you'll be operating towards. So it's understanding what each day for the operation actually currently looks like, and do they have these kind of basic levels there. Those SOPs and those operational manuals, they teach and they tell each member of staff how they need to operate within the space. You're hoping that it's going to make them more efficient. They're all going to do something exactly the same way. It's the same simple thing that if you go into a coffee shop and you order your flat white and it 3 times out of 5 comes out exactly how you'd expect it to, and then on 2 other occasions it comes out completely wrong, that break in consistency is the worst thing that you can have in an operation, because as a customer, you just don't know what you're actually getting from them. Is it going to be good today, or is it going to be bad today? The SOPs help with this level of consistency. So I would first look to make sure that they've got a level of consistency that they can comfortably deliver day in, day out, so that the member or the end user knows exactly what they're having. And then from that standard point, I'd want to look at how can we slowly increase the pressure on us to actually deliver more. Where would be the breaking point where it starts to look like we're just chasing ourselves with the level of staff count that we've got, knowing that that's the ultimate aim that we need to try and get close to before we can start adding on to it and going from there. And the journey is the day of the member. So it's what happens to them as soon as they walk in the building at 9 a.m. or whenever they walk in, to the point they leave at 5 p.m. That's their day. And what does their day look like, and how many touch points along that 9 a.m. to the 5 p.m. Graph can I get a nod to them in the corridor, or a smile, or a quick 1-minute chat along their day, just to make it a little bit better for them, just to give them that little element of escapism that we talked about earlier on. That's the journey for the member. If you can understand what that journey looks like, you can then think about, well, what I need to do is I need to add this little element or this standard operating procedure in there at this point in time during the course of the day, because it's going to make a big difference to the member on their journey for that day.
As you're talking there, I was thinking, like, mapping that out nowadays using some kind of AI, just like talking to it and making those SOPs is like easier and faster and more accurate than ever. Because remember, like the amount of manuals, training manuals I type up in Word that would take ages, you know, in the olden days, and now you could get everyone round, record the call, chuck it all in, make it, you know, it's just I don't want to say easy, that's a bit flippant, but it's like the speed to get to the really high standard is much easier than ever. But do you agree with that? I got really excited there. But
yes, no, I would say that would make it an awful lot easier. I would also say that it'd be good to have each team member involved in the creation of SOPs because they then own it.
Yep.
And they understand, they know already the quickest way or the best way to do something because they're doing it day in, day out. But it's about having that standard there that everybody works towards the same thing. And that's probably the first point of hospitality, is just making sure that the service is consistent at the very basic level.
Yeah, there's, you know, when you were talking about the flat white, I was thinking, you know, the amount of coffee bars, like here there's great coffee bars in Pico, but the amount of coffee bars when I look in and see who's serving. And if it wasn't my person, I then go to the next place because the risk was too high to get a mediocre espresso.
And think about it from a business perspective, what they've just lost because of that one thought that you have. That's the member journey. That is what you're trying to do. Is trying to understand what the people are thinking, where they're not quite happy, because that coffee shop just lost one customer for that day purely because of that element. You multiply that during everyone else that feels exactly the same way that you do, that one day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, how many flat whites or coffees have they lost?
Yeah, I always think about that. And there was a bit like when we used to, like, there was this saying of like a Coke customer today could be a steak customer tomorrow, and that you never know who you're serving kind of element, and that's where the consistency is, right? I can film loads of cheesy customer service things coming back. Where is there anything you want to add to that before we jet off into the sunset?
No, I think that's enough. I think for people to think about to start off with, you know, I appreciate how hard it is for people to think about the lines of hospitality within what they're doing. The main thing I would say here is don't sweat it too much. Just think about what you can deliver, and then just try and deliver that consistently at a high level, and then a higher level as much as you possibly can. And that is getting you into this art of being hospitable, which is the fundamentals of hospitality.
Beautiful. Where can we find you and your writing and your
mostly on LinkedIn, I suppose, like everybody else. I did last year write quite a few articles on there about all different sorts of stuff, and I've been a bit lazy this year to get going back into that with other things going on.
They were quite good, Ian. I think you should try some more. They were all right, you know.
Thanks,
mate. They helped me through my Christmas holiday.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I've got a few more ideas and stuff that I want to write. So connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm
going to link to Ian's articles because they are definitely worth reading, and they're like very unfluffy as well, which I appreciate.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
And we will put links to all of that in the show notes, folks. And as always, run in there, check those show notes, link to the co-working LinkedIn group, link to European Co-working Day, link to Sir Caleb Parker's Brave Ideas thing. And wherever you are in the world, be careful out there. It is a jungle. Ian, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Nicely done.